You are now listening to Out of the Blank.
Well, I'm here with Andra. Now, you said Nesmith.
Yeah, Nesmith.
So, welcome to Out of the Blank podcast. I'm happy to have you on. So, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and what do you do professionally?
Yeah, so professionally, a little bit about myself. Like I said, from moved here from Virginia, but I was born in Washington State. Kind of grew up everywhere. I like to say I kind of grew up in a suitcase because grew up with the military background. So I did a lot of traveling throughout the world. But a little bit about myself. I currently work at Apple, the Apple store. I currently am a technician there. But I have a master's in counseling, so I provide counseling on the side as well. But yeah, I have my bachelor's in psychology and my master's in counseling, and I enjoy podcasting. I recently did this just kind of as a joke to myself, and I was like, you know what? I like this.
You own an
So-
Apple phone, and there's so many apps out there that lead to podcasts, and you would think,
Yeah, exactly.
work in Apple. Now, what do you like about Apple? Because I actually have before we even hit about that, let me ask you. Now, you said you have a bachelor's in psychology.
Yeah.
So I have to bring up the question from another psychology kind of fascinated person himself. I went to school for it a little bit. What's your mental kind of health thing?
As far as my views on it, or
Your own personal, because if you actually notice between a lot of people that are fascinated about therapists, like, or being
they're crazy.
Yeah, they all suffer from something. This is actually
Definitely.
I've had professional master therapists, whatever degree you want to say. I don't think that's what makes a good therapist. I think it's also the ability to understand and listen. But the funniest thing about it was anybody that really loves psychology suffers from their own mental affliction. And the most ironic part about it is that you can diagnose others, but you can never diagnose yourself.
Exactly.
Like for me, I suffer from ADHD, so I'll be open about that. I suffer from anxiety. I think we all do at some points, and depression and things of that sort.
I definitely agree with that. For one, I don't necessarily agree with most of the mental health field. So let's just get that out the way.
There's a lot of things wrong with it when it comes to criteria. Somebody, can you believe that ADHD is still considered a mental health issue?
Right.
Bullshit.
Exactly.
The only problem it creates in my life is I cannot sleep, but I use that to my benefit. Instead of playing Dragon City or something stupid on my phone, at 2:00 in the morning, I'll be podcasting with a person in Africa. So
Exactly. Yeah. Use it for your benefit. So for me, I definitely think that most people who get into the field, they say they want to help, but really they need to help themselves is the first thing. But a lot of people, it's easy to say, let me fix you, instead of actually saying, let me help myself. So for me, I got into psychology because I didn't even know I wanted to get into psychology, for one. It was never a thought for me. I also play music. So that was kind of like my biggest thing. Like I wanted to be either writing someone's songs or playing in someone's stage. I want to be on tour. I want, and I still do music as well. I do lessons. I teach lessons, but I also do my own thing. So I have my own gigs and all that. That's really where my passion kind of is. But I got into psychology because someone was like, hey, you give great advice. Why don't you think about psychology? And, at the time it was like, music doesn't make any real money, and why do that loser artistry? So I kind of bought that for a little while, and I was like, you know what? I do give great advice, so I'll do psychology. But long story short, didn't know that that's not anything what psychology is about. And so over time, I was like, you know what? I actually feel like this is just who I am. Like, just naturally, people just want to ask me for advice or get help from me. And so
it's what like a lot of people, especially young age, I always get the mentality or someone that's older telling me I'm an old soul. It's not that I'm an old soul. It's that the best thing to be is real. And a lot of people that are real have already been through some shit. When you choose to be a therapist nowadays, it's just because it's a professional status. But when you look at people that are true therapists, people that actually care, they're people. That's what they are. They love helping someone who needs it. I remember one of the best therapists I've ever met in my life was my best friend's mom, and I didn't know she was a therapist until just a few years ago. And she was on my podcast, and we were talking about it. And she was what I call a real therapist, because she has told people, I'm not going to take your money anymore because I don't think I can help you, but I'm going to suggest a way that you can get the help you're looking for. And the girl she was telling me about that she had to say that to looked at her and said, "What?" And she goes, "I'm not going to pay you to just come in and have a conversation with me. You want to talk to someone. That's all you want. You don't want to diagnose anything. You don't need anything diagnosed. You just need human interaction." And when she said that, I was like, "But you just passed up on money." And she goes, "Exactly. I'm not going to charge someone just to have a conversation." And I take that with my podcast. I remember my cousin is a business strategist. He wanted to go in the aspect of, you should make it a business. You should give people, they pay this much money and they get an hour to talk to you. I'm like, I'm not going to fucking pay somebody to have a conversation.
Exactly. And neither do I. Like, my entire counseling is pro bono, because for one, I don't think you should charge someone to help. If you're doing it out of, I really want to help you, then why the hell are you charging?
The only good charge you can get from getting advice is when you get the fortune cookie, because that cookie is bland as hell,
right?
And that's your price that you're paying.
Exactly.
But
we all got to pay that price. Exactly.
But you get that amazing wisdom inside of it, where it's like, two roads will cross at a river, and you're like, the fuck does that mean?
Right.
But somehow it relates to my life perfectly.
Exactly. Those fortune cookies, man, they never get it wrong. It's like, yeah, okay. And so, I don't charge for my service, because I think that if it's helping the world and it's helping people, then there are other ways to make money. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I do it because I actually love it, not because it's like, oh, pay me because I know so much more about your life. No, I don't know shit about your life, but I can help you help yourself. That's how I look at it.
It's all about being the other, like, new eyes looking in at something.
Yeah,
dealing
exactly.
with. But also, like we're saying, going through some shit. Usually you just have a better grasp of what that situation was. I know I brought up in the beginning, like, dealing with some type of mental disorder. So what exactly is yours?
What is mine? I would say they can't diagnose me, for one. They don't know what the hell I am, for two. But the one that keeps trying to come up, I guess, would be bipolar, because I'm like crazy as hell, but stable at the same time. And so they don't really know what to do with me.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of people become diagnosed with bipolar disorder just on the basis of having emotions. And I always bring up the point, does that 5-year-old kid really have bipolar disorder? Are we really diagnosing that correctly? Or is it just the fact that a lot of people nowadays are being born into nothing but suppression? So you don't want to act a certain way anymore. You want to start to break out. I had ADHD. The medical industry or education system gave up on me. They thought if I wouldn't take a pill, then I was just a loss. I was basically practically put into a mentally disabled classes. And I would tell them, I can function at a higher level than most, but I have too much energy to be stuck in a classroom.
Exactly. Yeah, growing up for me, it was definitely like, oh, you have this learning disability. But it was actually like, no, this shit is just boring. And that's not stimulating me at all. So it's kind of like, yeah, I'm going to be seen dumb as hell if I'm not challenged.
I think the problem with me even taking psychology, and I'm pretty sure anybody that decides to even look up anything into psychology and actually take a course on it, you start diagnosing fucking everyone. Not on purpose, but you're out in the store and you just look at them like, man, that person's really upset over the amount of items that one woman has in the grocery line. And you're like, how did that person get there? You start thinking about their environmental influences. You're like, what caused this person to get to level 10? And it's like, I see it all the time. Like my buddy has a little bit of OCD, but I'll sit there and look at him. I'm like, man, you got an OCD disorder. You just like, stop diagnosing me, man. I'm like, I don't mean to. I do it to myself. It's
right. I guess I'm kind of the exact opposite about it, because I hate being labeled and I hate being diagnosed with anything. So it's kind of like I went into the field with the objective to do the exact opposite, to kind of dismantle it from the inside out. That was kind of my goal. You know what I mean? So when I see people, I'm like, man, you probably have been diagnosed, but you probably don't even have nothing. Like that's what I mean when I say I don't like the system, because you have to diagnose. But there are so many people who don't have anything. It's just like they're just living. Like like you just said, it's like trauma and other stuff that causes people to have these things that we want to diagnose. But it's kind of like that's just detrimental in my opinion. Like nobody needs a label. Nobody needs.
Well, I think when it comes to classifying something like that, it's always been known throughout history. It's just psychology is a field of study. So now we have labels on a lot of things that really don't need labels, whether it's someone's quirks or someone's little kink or whatever weird thing about them. We do have a title for it. It doesn't mean that they're emotionally or mentally wrong, though. But there are certain mental disorders, though, that do have a serious effect that, like I said, it should definitely be addressed. For instance, my buddy's mom, who ended up taking her own life, suffered from severe schizophrenia. If any route you go into in psychology, you learn a little bit about schizophrenia. This is not something saying that is who that person is. It is a part of them, but that is something they toll with on their brain very, very heavily. And sadly, we don't have a cure for anything of this sort. See, the thing is, when you talk about mental health, people look at you who don't have any type of mental health issue and they think you're a broken person. That is not true, because they think just because they've reached the age of 40, they've reached the age of 50, they reach whatever age, maybe 80 years old, that they could never develop a mental disorder. And it's not true, because a mental disorder can hit you at any period in your life.
Exactly. And I don't think that it's something that needs to be cured. Is something that's managed, and is something that is not to say that there's something wrong with you. It's just to say, like, first of all, I think we all have our society is prone to creating people with mental issues and mental disorders. So anyone living past the age of like 2 is probably diagnosable.
Yeah, severe anxiety you're seeing in ages of 8, and they're now getting younger just with the implementations of technology and social media now. But with, like you said, there are some mental health disorders that shouldn't be classified as a mental health disorder on the basis of it's just a little bit out of the norm, such as ADHD, such as depending on your case of bipolar. I know some severe cases of it where it had to be diagnosed because it wasn't very beneficial. They were getting self-harm. See, that's the problem, though. When a lot of people get upset and angry, the first thing they immediately think and start doing is self-harm. And that is a major problem, because even no matter how bad of a person you are, you shouldn't hurt yourself in any specific way. And with schizophrenia, that is a severe mental health disorder that does need to be addressed, because that is a problem where if it doesn't get addressed and people treat you, or, I'm not saying baby you, but let's say a random person doesn't understand that you have that, and then you snap one day. You need to have that awareness around you. It was always aware to me when I was around my buddy's mom that she had this severe disorder, but she took medication for it. And I got to see it when she wasn't taking her medication anymore, that eventually led up to whatever happened. And it was difficult to be around that. But at the same time, it made me very cautious, because I would try and work with her even when she wasn't on it. I would try and make it a comfortable feeling. I would try my hardest, which we all try and do. That's something that needs to get addressed, because I know people that have been in car accidents that immediately get a different personality. I know those are things that to be aware of. And the School of Psychology, it has a right mind to it, but the way we take it as people today have turned it into something that it's not. It's just a
Exactly.
classification, a way of dividing people and labeling them, which is not the
Mm-hmm.
right way of taking it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So, like, tell me more about yourself and how you got into podcasting.
Oh, well, I mean, my parents were broadcasters, so it figured I fell right into it. But, it all comes from, guess, I was introvert for a long time, and I figured, hey, like, let me start to talk to people again. It's like the social skill in the game Sims. It's the one that drains slower than all the rest. But eventually, when someone like talks to you after not talking to someone for forever, you realize, holy shit, like, this is like a hug to my soul. And then eventually
Right.
it led to something. I started noticing, I had a buddy call me up one time, and this is how the podcast started. He was on his roof drunk, and I hadn't talked to him from just school. We hadn't talked in 5 years. And he's telling me, you're always a real person. And I just want to say, like, I'm on my roof right now about the jump. And he was just telling me all of his feelings. And I told him, like, dude, I'm in the same way of thinking. We're in our 20s right now. If you're not picking up a beer bottle or you're not going to a bar, you don't exist. That's why kids in my area get so heavily into drinking, because we're all just doing the same routine shit all the time. So I was like, why don't we take an hour to get to know people again? And that's how it started.
That's dope. I like that, because I see that you have like a lot of guests on your space here.
That's every episode.
Yeah. And so and I like how you do this just as like a conversation. I think that keeps it real, authentic, just like no script. It's actually like a good way to network and to meet people who, like you just said, you can do a podcast with someone in Australia, it's like, I think that that's really cool.
Well,
That's super cool.
it's about taking the time to get to know people again. I mean, how many types of, I have a very, 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 very problem with society. I don't like a lot. I honestly don't like people, only on the concept of, I don't like the image we choose to show.
Right, exactly.
I don't like those default answers. I kill for some of the times. Like if I go to a store and I put a head of cabbage or whatever I'm buying on the conveyor belt, and I go just like, I'm going to decide to talk to someone today. I go and I talk to them and I'm like, so how's your day going? Don't get me started about my fucking
fine. My day, I'm fine.
I'm good. I'll take self-checkout over this. Like, I was just trying to, be nice and friendly to you. I would kill for a weather chat when that pops up, because it seems like we've suppressed ourselves so much as people to where we don't talk anymore, where we just get comfortable, go home and go to bed or something, or watch TV. We never leave our house anymore. That now when we do talk to someone or we associate with someone, if it's not a default answer, it's complaining and relieving the stress that's in our lives that we're not handling effectively as people anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
You do stuff in your podcast too. I mean, like when a lot of the stuff you talk about, like, I mean, just give me a run through of some of because I see a lot of soul and it seems like a lot of inner spiritual stuff too.
Yeah. I talk about whatever, but I talk about like star seeds and just like odd stuff. You know what I mean? Because it's like a lot of us, I think, like you just said, we're so suppressed, but we have so many weird things, or just odd things that we're thinking, that's what I kind of want to talk about, And then I talk about just general stuff. Like I talked about love earlier, but I try to talk about topics that are kind of off the wall and stuff that I can actually learn from too. Cause I love to learn. So I'm always like, hey, what's up? Like, and people send in their topics and I'm just like, oh snap, I got to talk, but I got to learn about it too. And I do talk a lot about spiritual stuff, but it's whatever I'm feeling that day. Honestly, it's kind of just like whatever.
What things interest you the most?
What interests me the most? I think right now, I would say right now it is the spiritual awakening and just trying to like just wake people up to like, hey, there's so much more to life than what we've been spoon fed to believe, And it's like you said, like society kind of just pisses me off. So it's like, we don't have to just do the whole 9 to 5 marriage and die type life. Like there's so much more. And it's kind of trying to go ahead.
Do you think that society it's like the education system, all these things, they're creating a templated person. What you're supposed to be is the gym that works the 9 to 5. Anybody that truly looks inside of themselves as a form of meditation, or just takes a second to be trapped in those things we're afraid of called our thoughts, but actually sit there and siphon in through. This is what's very popular with a topic called one aeronautics, which are these people that used to do what Inception is, where they used to go inside of your dreams. Well, that was a real kind of study on the basis of astral projection, but finding the inner things inside of your head that pop out in dreams and nightmares, writing them down in a journal and trying to decipher what those messages meant. Because your dreams are just coded messages. A lot of the times you experience nightmares are problems and things that are affecting you in your everyday life that you're choosing to gloss over.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you just said it. Like, I don't have nothing else to say about that. I hadn't even heard of that before. But yeah, dreams are messages. And so, I mean, Sigmund Freud has a whole book on the dreams and interpreting dreams in psychology.
Now, do you believe a lot of what he says? Because a lot of people don't really like him. I think a lot of his studies were the really good founding points for a lot of stuff in psychology.
I feel like what he said, a lot of it was the way he said it. I think that's what got people.
He was blunt.
He was blunt, and he was, half drunk on cocaine half the time. So it's kind of like, I think people just didn't really appreciate his tone. But I think a lot of stuff that he said, I think there's weight to it. I think that there's, truth to everything if you really look for it. And so, yeah, I mean, they consider him the founder of psychology. So it's like, hey, he must have did something right.
Oh, they call him the father of psychology.
The father, there you go.
Call him the father, the big daddy.
That's what I was about to say. Exactly. So
I find it weird because nobody ever wants to bring up things like politics or religion and all these concepts. And they always have to, like, nowadays you go to greet somebody, they greet you with their name and then their political party. And I'm like, what? Like, I just want to know what you're getting into before you talk to me. And
where did they do that?
I'm like, but why do we stigmatize it? We choose to stigmatize words. We choose to stigmatize things because we're afraid it's going to bring up a refuting a point. Nothing in any argument you get into in your life, nobody's ever wrong. Yeah, there's obviously a clear person who is wrong. But if you really think about it, when it comes to concepts of right and wrong, it's all based on how
opinions.
We all have different views. I mean, so many people that have a hard life and they grow up to have a better life and an easy life, and you look at them like, you probably never experienced hardship. That's not true. Because everyone knows that a lot of pain creates goodness, but also the way that another route people take it is that you can literally go with that pain and think that life is going to be nothing but pain and choose to roll with that. You have to pull yourself up from your bootstraps and get yourself out of that.
I read earlier, because I read earlier today, it was like the universe gives one answer, and that answer is yes. So if you believe you're a failure and you're never going to be worth nothing, the answer is yes. If you believe that you can have a better life and that you can be somebody, the answer is yes. And so it's just like what you just said.
I like the universe's answer better than the magic 8-ball that just keeps telling me try again later. I don't want to fucking try again later. Just give me the answer, please.
Yeah, man, the 8-ball on the fortune cookies. I mean, that's life right there.
The damn 8-ball tell me, are you sure? It's like, what
I wouldn't be asking your ass if I was sure.
Am I sure? I want to know. Try again later. I do not have the answer right now. Yeah. Don't give me that shit.
So what is your views on talking politics and religion and all those taboo topics that people want to avoid?
Same thing when someone brings it up on my podcast. I just go, I'm open-minded. Let's talk about it. I'll talk about it. Like I said, when you look at politics, all your views are your own. And they're only your own because you get it from a source. They're not really your own opinions on anything. They're just information you've received from somewhere. So always keep that in mind. But I also, I never agree. I never disagree. I just like look at the other side's perspective. When you start, like for me, I've done hundreds of these from all walks of life, all different types of people. And I've always stayed open-minded because everyone's got a different perspective. I've had people come on here that agree this way, and I've had people go and agree and talk about a whole other thing, saying, yeah, astral projection is the best thing in the world. And some dude telling me, no, astral projection is a load of crap. And I'm just talking to them both. I'm like, but can you see the other side's point of view? It's the same thing with religion. I'm not religious, but I understand where people get religious and have that belief. I know people that choose the religion to look to God because it brought them out of a point in their life where they felt like they had nothing. I understand that, and I'm a little bit jealous for them that they could have that belief, and I would never try and break it. But I also understand, being an ordained church minister under the Church of Bacon myself, that religion is also just something that was created, and understanding it from that perspective as well. I think you can never finalize and try and change anybody. Once you start doing that, you lose the essence of what it means to truly be your own unique individual.
I agree 100%. Yeah, the only person you can change is yourself. And I think that that's an illusion. I think you could change anyone else. It's definitely not true. And why would you want to? Like,
well, because we want to create people that are like-minded. We see there's a thing about people that makes religion and makes everything so popular, is that we want to be around people that share our views. We want to be around like-minded individuals. If anybody's a little bit different,
there's no growth there. If everyone was the same, I mean, you just get more of the same.
Do people want growth, or does it seem like we just
want to be
comfortable?
A lot of people want to be comfortable. That is true. That is true.
It's what really kind of scares people. I've talked to some people that are used to be heavily into the church and then ended up not being into it anymore because they just questioned too much. And the answer the church would give would be, hey, we're going to need you to stop coming here. Why? Because you're bringing up too many questions. You're making people have wavered faith. And it felt like it was going to affect everyone else's mindset and destroyed their community, which is understandable. But it's also the same time as, if someone chooses to leave and someone chooses not to have that faith anymore, then why are you going to just be, try and sit there and tell them they can't leave or do all these types of things? You rather just isolate the problem. Why don't you talk to someone and, let the questions come? The best parts about people are that we are curious. And sadly, that's our biggest defect as well.
Well, I definitely see that. But I heard this saying, and it said, religion is a set of answers that cannot be questioned. And philosophy is a set of questions that cannot be answered.
Well, they're all just blanket statements. The problem is when you can never answer religion with anything, because you never know what truly exists out there. It's the same reason it's called Russell's teapot. I don't know if you've ever heard of this concept, but when I started looking at parody religions, which are all just they're a crack joke at religion in a way, but they have true meaning behind them. Okay, so there's Pastafarianism. That's worshiping a giant flying spaghetti monster. Now that's okay for you to laugh because I did the same thing.
Yeah, it's kind of funny.
Then I did a podcast on it, and I spent 45 minutes just talking about Pastafarianism and bringing up the whole concept. It was a guy in Harvard in 2006 that created it to highlight that we are teaching a certain religion in a school system, and a school system shouldn't be confined to one religion, it should be open to all bases. So the whole point of Pastafarianism, where they worship a giant spaghetti monster and they have a beer volcano, it's laughable only on the concept of it's meant to highlight one of the weirdest things we choose to follow, and not letting other religions and other beliefs into a system that is flawed. So then there's the Invisible Pink Unicorn Church. those people believe that there's an invisible pink unicorn out there that makes all their wildest things and all these random things and all these whatever happens in life is what is on the basis of an invisible pink unicorn. And it was to highlight the aspect of God. God, this person that's supposed to be male, that you're supposed to believe in, sits on a throne with a beard. Who's to say God's not a woman? I'm pretty sure God is fucking Morgan Freeman, to be honest with you. But invisible pink unicorn used two factors. One, pink, and two, invisible. It questioned the biggest thing. How the hell would you know it was pink if it was invisible? How do you how the hell do you know God's a guy with a white beard sitting on a golden throne? You don't, but you choose to
exactly.
Anyway. So parody religions with Russell's teapot is the fact that I can tell you right now there is a teapot floating between Earth and the sun somewhere in space, and you could not prove me wrong. The reason why is because there's so much vast space out there that we have no understanding of, that it's just a concept. There's no evidence that can ever prove me wrong, and there's no evidence that can ever prove me right. You'll only be able to get the information I said it was true.
Yeah, I agree.
That's the concept of Russell's teapot.
I'm sure you've heard of cognitive dissonance.
Of course.
Of course you have. And I think that's what ruffles a lot of people's feathers with anything, is they want to hold on to their beliefs so tightly that anything that contradicts any belief, people get so upset about it.
Well,
and it's
because people hold it so personal, and they think you're attacking them as a person, when really you're just trying to decipher answers and understand things for yourself. You know,
I question anything that can't be questioned. If you can't question it, I question everything. So if I can't question it, there's a problem.
Yeah, it might not seem real.
Yeah.
It's crazy because you look at so many stories through religion, stories through anything, or just words that you hear from people. It's like, is that all the information though? Like, you just told me that you just told me Ken was an asshole. And that's the end of the discussion. Then you tell me your side.
Then what is Barbie? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. But then what's Ken's side? Like,
right.
What is Ken's description of this? So get both your factual information on everything. Like, when I get into an argument with someone, which rarely ever happens, only with people in my family, because we just know how to butt each other's heads. But I'll get into an argument or something, or I'll get into a disagreement, and then I'll sit there in the argument or something and think about their perspective of things. And I'm like, okay, well, this is why you're seeing it this way, and this is why I'm seeing it this way. Is there a way that somewhere along the way we both didn't get the same amount of information in the real scenario? And then we sit down and look at it, and it's dissolved in a minute.
Yeah.
It's not difficult to do that.
It's not, but so many people are unable to, or choose not to, I should say, because perception paints reality. And so getting into someone else's, seeing it from their view, that, for one, a lot of people, that's what causes so many disagreements, is nobody, like you just said, nobody wants to have these two religions sit down and say, see it from my point of view. Everyone wants to be, I'm right, you're wrong, I'm big, you're small type attitude, instead of, what can we learn from this? And like you just said, most people are comfortable. They don't want the growth. But that's kind of what I'm promoting, is growth and healing and things like that.
You're trying to do it through a more, just understand, and more of like, not really a forcing or suppressive way. You're doing it in a passive way. Like, did you know that you, like, this might change you? You're just giving advice, not really focusing on what a lot of people do nowadays and shove their opinion down someone's throat, or even shove or force somebody to do something. You're just offering advice, and something where if someone chooses that, hey, that might be cool to try, they can offer it, and they can look that up themselves and maybe get more information, then find something that clicks for them.
Exactly. That's kind of the thing. I'm like, if it resonates, take it. If it doesn't, leave it. Like, it's no forcing. It's kind of just like, hey, if what I say helps you, then that's cool. If it doesn't, that's cool too.
I like that, because we already live in a world of suppression. I mean, how many times do you go out in the world today and you just feel like you're not really truly free?
Exactly. Yeah. Freedom is a must. And it's essential. And I feel like we don't even realize that we're slaves anymore, because we're so used to being captive. we're captivated by TV. We're captivated by the 9 to 5. We're captivated by so many different things, social media, all this stuff that kind of keeps us all in this mental slavery, in this bondage that we don't even realize.
I used to remember days used to go by way slower. Now it feels like the older I get, they go by so quick. Like it seems like this year's already almost over, and I couldn't tell you, like, just a blink of my eye, it was gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what happened? I know some things I did and some podcasts I've had, but should truly really think it's like a lot of that time gets spent watching what, TV or working. It's like you don't ever have anything for yourself anymore.
Exactly. That's kind of the rat race, is to keep you from yourself. It's kind of to occupy the mind and the body. If you're spending 10-hour days at work, by the time you get home, you're exhausted and you're like, you know what? I'm not going to do shit besides go to sleep. And so where do you have time to learn anything else besides what they teach us? And I say they, meaning just society, because we all have a they.
Do you think that it's going to get worse in the coming years, or do you think that you're going to start seeing with types of, people being a little bit more aware of mental health in a way? It seems like nowadays that people are learning and it's becoming more mainstream, like kind of like how before back in the day, there was no such thing as a peanut allergy. And then eventually there's peanut allergies, and then schools ended up changing it so you couldn't even have anything with peanuts in it. Do you think that it's going to eventually, with mental health, you're seeing more kids being affected, more people being affected now, that it's going to create like, maybe 20 years down the road or something where it seems like the majority of people now have a mental health disorder, that it's going to be more aware and there's going to be a better kind of understanding of it?
I think that somewhat. I think that if it gets worse, it's because we let it get worse. And I think that more people are speaking up, more people are doing podcasts, doing shows, putting memes, whatever they're doing to kind of like show that there's more. I think that there's more awareness now, definitely from, just like you said, there wasn't a peanut allergy before. Well, a lot of people weren't vegan before. A lot of people weren't getting counseling before. And, the mental health world is continuing to evolve. And so is so much of the world is evolving. There wasn't YouTube before. There wasn't all of these avenues to get all this information. And I think in the information age, if we choose to be ignorant, that's our own choice. So I do. Go ahead.
Ignorance is bliss, and people choose to use the information age we're in, all this technology and having resources at our fingertips. It is scary as hell because people take it in the wrong way of things. If they offered they have this idea of having a chip in the back of your head to have Google in the back of your head. I said, you know how bad that would be? There's the good aspect of why we're even doing something like that, because Google Translate. You can have conversations to be able to speak another language to someone and better understand people from another language and make it easier for them and also easier on yourself. That's amazing. Looking up research facts for papers, doing whatever just to better your own knowledge, amazing. Reading books, amazing. But I know what a guy is going to do with it, and 10 minutes into that chip, there's Pornhub on the back of his fucking head.
Right.
And instead of watching TV, he's watching porn.
Have you you mentioned a great point. Have you seen the movie Minority Report before?
I have.
Yeah, that shit is scary and real, and that's why I say if we let it get to that point, it could definitely go that way. I don't see it going that way. I feel like we're kind of at a divide right now, where it could either go to a Minority Report, Inception, Black Mirror type stuff, or it could go to the natural healing, the vegan society, being more consciously aware of things. And I feel like, and it might be because I'm in my own box, so I see so many people who are doing, yoga and just broadcasting messages that are more uplifting. I feel like that's where we're going.
When it comes to the technology age now, all my friends I have a couple buddies that consider themselves scientists on the basis that they believe in science rather than anything else. So anything else in their mind just doesn't sink in. And it's really hard
Gotcha.
for them to conversate with me because I always bring in the other perspective of things. And I'm like, no, it's not difficult. Just don't completely shut things off because there's no evidence. And they're all about getting implemented with like robot technology and shit. And I'm like, look, I always bring up this point. There's a thing in the government, in the CIA, that gets funded $500 million a year. There's 5 people working there, and it's called the Center for Existential Risk. This is literally to make sure Skynet doesn't fucking happen.
Say more about that.
It's 5 people that monitor all AI technology, anything that gets the new cell phone that comes out, whatever that you're getting in the store. That's not just a company that produces it. That is literally, it's getting researched, it's getting tested, it gets all this stuff before it hits the public. Well, there's a bunch of guys there on their computers monitoring every single new advancement to the technology age, every single invention, everything, that patent, all that idea gets thrown on their desk, and they make sure they monitor it just so it doesn't end up turning into a thing where we have like Sophia the robot who ends up controlling everybody's life.
Right. And I used to be so much more into so many different things. I mean, I was kind of like, I'm sure you've seen the documentary, the Zeitgeist thing. I'm sure you've probably seen or heard of that. I'm probably saying it wrong as well.
Tell me a little bit about
it. It's basically like a documentary of a bunch of different conspiracies and a bunch of different things going on with the government. And this was back in like 2007. I saw it. I was an undergrad and I saw this, and it talks about, you know, the 9/11 conspiracy. It talks about the food conspiracy, and it mentioned about like a chip being placed in our hand to do money. And it was talking about the chips that's in the cards now. It was actually going to be placed like in infants' hands automatically.
It's that fucking movie with Justin Timberlake.
It's kind of like that, the Out of Time or In Time or whatever that shit is called. It's kind of like that.
What I talk about this. There's going to be people like me that don't want to go into the whole chip and everything that you pay for and all this shit.
Yeah.
It's going to branch society and people in different groups where there's going to be old civilizations where they still use planes and that type of shit to get around. Then there's going to be like, what? The new society, they don't have a transporter. They're living in the old Stone Age. No, because I don't want to be able to teleport from one place to another just because my body breaks down all my cells and then recreates it in another position, like Star Trek shit. I'm not about that. I'll take a fucking horse if I have to. I don't care.
Yeah, exactly. Now this is a Disney movie, but I think that this shit was pretty on point. Have you seen WALL-E?
Yes, I have.
I feel like society has to collapse before it can have that utopian society. And you even mentioned Justin Timberlake. He does a music video for one of his songs. I don't remember which one it is. It's off his last album, where basically at the end, it's like these children coming up out the dirt. Like it's all like futuristic. And then at the very end, it's like these children coming out the dirt, like save us almost kind of thing. I don't remember which music video that's for, but I feel like it's 2 ways that this can go. You know, it's kind of like it's either going to be we have to go so far out into destructing and destroying ourselves with technology, or we can use it for our benefit.
I think it's going to be like with WALL-E, where people are going to be 800 pounds and have floating beds and shit because we're choosing to make life way too easy with technology. It's a benefit, the fact that I'm able to connect with you, and I probably would have never met you in my everyday life. I think that's amazing. But also at the same time, I see where the cell phone and all these things, like I broke my cell phone for 5 days one time, and I was waking up in the morning looking for a phone that wasn't there. And I realized that was something I need to isolate from myself. So when I go to the store, I keep my phone in the car. When I go out in the world, mostly because they're so big now, they don't fit in my fucking pants. But I go and make sure I isolate myself from this thing. I don't let it bother me at night. I don't let it bother me doing anything, because
Yeah.
it becomes something and ends up turning into a weight that weighs you down.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And like for me, I had to get out of the program of television. So I stopped all television for like, it's probably been about 5 years now since I've watched television. I mean, I stayed connected by reading more. I like having the news on my phone. I like having, YouTube and things like that. But as far as like, I used to just be sitting there watching awards shows and just bullshit TV, reality TV, not really reality TV, but just, anything to waste my time, really. And it's like, since I stopped watching TV, it's like, wow, I have so much time to do everything else I want to do. And so I really try to get rid of those things that waste our time. And like you said, when I'm on my phone, it's like I use it more for work now. I use it more to podcast and if I'm on it, it's to connect to people. I try to limit my social media. That's the next thing I'm like, I got to limit my social media intake because that's kind of a time waster for me too.
You got to have time for yourself and be able to make repairs
Mm-hmm.
on your own kind of social self, or just an inner inflection, I would say. A lot of people don't
Definitely.
want to do that because they can look on the internet and model themselves off someone that's not them.
Exactly.
It creates a very, very tragic lifestyle.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And now I mentioned it, but I didn't ask. Have you watched the Netflix show Black Mirror?
I have not. I know most
Okay.
people tell me I need to look it up because a lot of the stuff I say talks about things I talk about. I took the time because a bunch of people are telling me, dude, do you watch Stranger Things? I'm like, no, I've never seen Stranger Things. Like, but everything he says is like a lot in Stranger Things. I'm like, all right, fuck. Let me look this up. And I end up looking it up. I'm like, wow, this is a good show. And now I haven't seen a new season in a while. I'm like, all right, well, this was nice. Now people are telling me Black Mirror. I guarantee you, as soon as I hop on Black Mirror, the show's gonna be over with. Like, it's gonna be canceled. I'm like, oh, great.
I think it is already over. That's the funny thing is I think it is over already.
Well, I'm glad
But
I missed the boat. Can we do that with Game of Thrones? Because I've never seen an
right.
episode of Game of Thrones.
I'm in the same boat. Everyone's like, you got to watch Game of Thrones. I'm like, yeah, okay. Still haven't watched it yet either. So I'm in the same boat with that one. I'm sure I will at some point, but yeah, it's not on the priority list right now.
Well, we're better than Game of Thrones. It's just anybody that cries over the season finale, that's a problem with that show.
Yeah, they're diehard fans though.
Well, look, it's been awesome having you on my podcast.
For sure.
I appreciate you just hopping on. I mean, I know I slid in those DMs like it was like nothing. I was like, hey, want to be on a podcast? You're like, all right, what is going on with this?
Hey, I'm glad. Thank you for having me for one, and I'm just glad to have done this because this has been fun, and you're definitely always welcome on my podcast anytime. So let me know.
Shoot me with a day, and I'll be there.
All right.
Well, thanks so much for being on, and stay tuned for our next episode of Out of the Blank podcast.